questions to Ms. Graham. Has the department done a study of the economic and social impacts of the marine area closures or underwater parks on fishermen and their families?
Mr. Chair, the work that we've done has been to do the socioeconomic assessment as areas are established.
Well, you're trying to meet a 30 by 30 arbitrary decision put out by the United Nations. Has the department done an economic study of how many jobs will be lost from these marine area closures that have to be created to meet that number?
We are working as part of our site establishment process. Once we understand what the conservation measures are that will be put in place to do that socioeconomic analysis to generally understand.
So you are putting forward a policy that has the potential to cripple an entire industry before doing a socioeconomic assessment of how many jobs will be lost. Is that correct?
We're bound to follow the regulatory development process, which requires that at the drafting stage that we develop a regulatory impact assessment, which is meant to understand what the potential socioeconomic
So you don't know how many jobs will be lost. Has the department done a study of the social impacts on families in coastal communities of jobs that will definitely be lost as a result of marine area closures and underwater parks?
We have not, but we do work very closely
That's fine.
with
That's fine.
the industry.
Has the department done a study on the impacts to Canada's food security as a result of these jobs being lost that are a result of these marine area closures?
The work that we do in terms of understanding those potential economic impacts is to work very closely with the fishing industry to try to minimize.
Earlier, my time is limited. Sorry. Earlier, you said that you thought you had a strong relationship with the stakeholders in the fishing industry, and with all due respect, I've got many fishermen in my riding, and again, with all due respect, there is nothing but deep resentment for the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. They feel like they were not consulted. You're sitting here and telling me that this large plan that has the potential to close 30% of Canada's fishing grounds, 40% in the Northern South bioregion, and you don't even know how many jobs are going to be lost. You don't even know what's going to happen to the coastal communities like Port Hardy, like Prince Rupert, like Campbell River that rely on these industries. You don't even have a plan. What would you say to the fishermen and their families whose ability to put food on their table to feed their families, whose ability to earn a livelihood has been put at risk by some arbitrary international ideological policy that this government's blindly pursuing without even looking at the economic consequences? What would you say to them if you were sitting down at a meeting in one of these coastal towns? Because they're mad, they're frustrated.
We work with the fishing industry. We really do strive to ensure that the impacts are as minimal as possible, and we have, as a result, adjusted boundaries in a manner to actually minimize those socioeconomic impacts.
I mean, you say that, but you know, in BC, I'm sure you're familiar, there's a group supported by fishermen and industry, the Marine Planning Team, that came together basically out of desperation with a counter-proposal to meet your same closure requirements but reduce economic impacts by 77% and projected job losses by 80%, because they actually did the work with what the job losses were going to be. That was back in 2020. They never heard back. A couple years later, you came back with another proposal that ignored everything that they suggested and actually was even worse. So you say that you're listening to stakeholders, but it doesn't seem like you're listening to stakeholders if you're ignoring all the advice they put together. Why did you ignore everything that the Marine Planning Team put together?
We've shared with the fishing industry with respect to the work that the fishing industry has done on the West Coast is reassure them that the work that they have done is going to be really critical in understanding the socioeconomic analysis that will be undertaken as we advance the specific sites.
I mean, you guys obviously haven't done your work. I want to switch now to Mr. Miller with Parks Canada. You talk about working hand in hand with Indigenous partners, but probably the two most active fishing First Nations, two of the most successful, are the Weewakai and the Lax Kw'alaam. They think that MPAs are a terrible idea. One of them is suing the federal government in court. Chief Ronnie Chikite of the Weewakai First Nation, who's probably the most successful commercial fisherman that is First Nations on the entire coast, think MPAs are unscientific, misguided, economically damaging, and won't work. How are you working hand in hand with First Nations that oppose marine planning areas?
Almost every area that we are working to establish these days is done through some sort of cooperative management process with Indigenous groups, where we work in partnership to examine the proposals on the table, look at how they would meet shared interests, discuss cooperative governance mechanisms that can be put in place for making decisions. I mean, there's numerous examples of this across the country, like Waihanas in BC, which I'm sure your committee members would be familiar with, where, you know, we try to make sure we understand the interests. As I mentioned earlier, there's always a diversity of perspectives. We don't expect that our Indigenous partners will all speak with exactly the same voice, but we try to work with leadership, to consult with as many members as we can, and to come up with solutions that we think meet everyone's interests. And we do that really through a collaborative process where we're not deciding on behalf of First Nations unilaterally.